Samkhyam cha yogam cha ya pashyate sa pashyate. Translation. One who knows the positions reached by the means of renunciation can also be attained by the works in devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees the things as they are. Text 6. Sanyasatu mahapabo dukam aputam ayogata yoga yukto munir brahma na charinadhigachate. Translation. Unless one is engaged in devotional service to the Lord, mere renunciation of activities cannot make one happy. The sages purified by works of devotion achieve the supreme without delay. Text 7, I think that's our final text. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitama vijitraya sarva bhutatma bhutama bhuvan upena lipyate. Translation. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Turning back to text 41. Translation. Therefore, one who has renounced the fruits of his actions, whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, and who is situated firmly in the self, is not bound by works, O conqueror of the riches. Report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One who follows the instructions of the Gita, as it is imparted by the Lord, the personality God himself becomes free from all doubts by the grace of transcendental knowledge. He is as part of the parcel of the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, is already established in self-knowledge. As such, he is undoubtedly above bondage to action. So therefore, one who has renounced the fruits of his actions, whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, and who is situated firmly in the self, is not bound by works, O conqueror of riches. I don't think there's enough of us that really take into account what renouncing the fruits of our actions are. It means that we're steadfast in both success and failure, whether what we go out to do, and if we fail at it, a lot of times we feel hard on ourselves. But to be renounced of the fruits of the actions, you're renouncing the results. Results you do not own. Whether it's success or failure, Krishna owns that. It's all of Krishna's, as it's stated in I'm trying to remember which verse in Bhagavad Gita. He's telling Arjuna, trying to remember the verse. I'm sorry. But he's told Arjuna, you was that? Yeah, you have the right to perform your duties, but you not have the right the fruits of your actions. Those belong to me. So in every way, you actually find this even more in, especially if you do spend some time in book distribution, because you can't be attached to the results, whether you have a good day or a bad day. You can't be attached to that. You just and it all has to be renounced. It really helps in distributing books, because you're not trying to do better than the day before. You're not trying to beat the results. You're just out there performing the action. Krishna owns the results. Text 42. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge, armed with yoga. O Bharata, stand and fight. Purport. The yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatana Yoga, or eternal activities performed by the living entity. This yoga has two divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice of one's material possessions. and the other is called knowledge of self, which is pure spiritual activity. If sacrifice of one's material possessions is not dovetailed for spiritual realization, then such sacrifice becomes material. But one who performs such sacrifices to the spiritual objective or in the devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. When we come to spiritual activities, we find that these are also divided into two, namely understanding of one's own self or one's constitutional position, and the truth regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who follows the path of the Gita, as is very easily understand these two important divisions of spiritual knowledge. For him, there is no difficulty in obtaining perfect knowledge of the self as part and parcel of the Lord, and such understanding is beneficial for such a person who easily understands the transcendental activities of the Lord. In the beginning of this chapter, the transcendental activities of the Lord were discussed by Supreme Lord himself. One who does not understand the instructions of the Gita is faithless, as being considered to be misusing the fragmental independence awarded to him by the Lord. In spite of such instructions, one who does not understand the real nature of the Lord as the eternal, blissful, all-knowing personality of Godhead is certainly fool number one. Ignorance can be removed by a gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to the demigods. Sacrifice to Brahma, sacrifice in celibacy, in household life, in controlling the senses, in practicing the mystic yoga, in penance, in foregoing material possessions, in studying the Vedas, and in the partaking of social institution called Pranashrama Dharma. All of these are known as sacrifice, and all of them are based on regulated action. But within all these activities, the important factor is self-realization. One who seeks that objective is the real student of Bhagavad Gita. The one who doubts the authority of Krishna falls back. One is therefore advised to study the Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture under a bona fide spiritual master with a service and surrender. A bona fide spiritual master is a distinct succession from time eternal, and he does not deviate at all from the instructions of the Supreme Lord as they were imparted millions of years ago to the sun god, from whom the instructions of Bhagavad Gita have come down to the earthly kingdom. One should therefore follow the path of Bhagavad Gita as expressed in the Gita itself, and beware of self-interested people after personal aggrandizement who deviate others from the actual path. The Lord is definitely the Supreme Person, and his activities are transcendental. One who understands this is liberated person is a liberated person from the very beginning of his study of the Gita. That's a lot to take in there. Any questions so far? So as you see, it says that one should study the Gita under a spiritual master. Having a guru is very important. And he's telling the instructions as they were handed down millions of years ago, exactly as it is. Chapter 5, text 1. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work. Then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" In this 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that work and devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. Devotional service is easier than the latter because, being transcendental in nature, it frees one from reaction. In the 2nd chapter, preliminary knowledge of the soul and its entanglement and the material body were explained. How to Get Out of This Material Entanglement by Buddha Yoga or Devotional Service was also explained therein. In the third chapter, it was explained that a person who is situated on the platform of knowledge no longer has any duties to perform. And in the fourth chapter, the Lord told Arjuna that all kinds of sacrificial work accumulate in knowledge. However, at the end of the fourth chapter, the Lord advised Arjuna to wake up and fight, being situated in perfect knowledge. Therefore, by simultaneously stressing the importance of both work and devotion and inaction and knowledge, Krishna has perplexed Arjuna and confused his determination. Arjuna understands that renunciation and knowledge involves cessation of all kinds of work performed as the sense activities. But if one performs work in devotional service, then how is the work stopped? In other words, he thinks that sannyasam or renunciation is knowledge. Renunciation of knowledge should be altogether free from all kinds of activity, because work and renunciation appear to him to be incompatible. He appears not to have to understand that work and full knowledge is non-reactive and is therefore the same as inaction. He inquires, therefore, whether he should cease work altogether or work with full knowledge. That's a crazy thing about this material world, about everything that we do, whatever work we undertake, all of our actions. There's always a reaction. This is what karma is. It's the natural law of the universe that there's a reaction to our actions. But with devotional service, that frees us from these reactions. Through devotional service, through bhakti yoga, we are actually being purified of our karma. We're not here to, attain good karma or bad karma. We don't want karma. We don't want either karma. Good karma will still entangle you even further, just as much as bad karma. At least with the good karma, you get a little bit better benefits in the future, but you're still entangled. In bhakti yoga, devotional service, we're being free, we're being purified. Every time we come and make obeisances to Gaurnitai, to Prabhupada, to our spiritual master, we are being purified of that karma. Whenever we're performing our devotional duties, our devotional seva, whether it be washing dishes, scrubbing the floors, doing laundry, whatever we're doing, if as long as it's in the devotional service, we aren't accumulating any good karma or bad karma. We're being purified. That's where service is very important. The more service you do, the more purification you're getting. Text 2, translation. The Blessed Lord said, the renunciation of work and devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work and devotional service is better than renunciation of works. Purport. Fruitive activities seeking sense gratification are caused from material bondage. As long as one is engaged in activities aimed at improving the standard of bodily comfort, one is sure to transmigrate to different types of bodies, thereby continuing material bondage perpetually. Srimad Bhagavatam confirms as follows. Nunam pramata kurute vikarma vayad indraya kritaya aprinati na sadhu maye yata atmano yam asanapi kleshara asadeha prahabhavos tavad aboda chato yavana jitnatsata atma tattvam yavat krishya tavadida manovai karmata makam yena sarya bandhaha evamana karma vasham prayukyate evidyayatmane apayam yamane kritirna vatyavamayi Vasudeva nam uchayate deha yogina tavat. People are mad after sense gratification, and they do not know that this present body, which is full of miseries as a result of one's fruitive activities in the past. Although this body is temporary, it is always giving one trouble in many ways. Therefore, to act for sense gratification is not good. One is considered to be a failure in life as long as he makes no inquiry about the nature of work for fruitive results. For as long as one is engaged in the consciousness of sense gratification, one has to transmigrate from one body to another. Although the mind may be engrossed in fruitive activities and influenced by ignorance, one must develop a love for devotional service to Vaishnava. Only then can one have the opportunity to get out of the bondage of material existence. Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 5, verse 4 through 6. Therefore, jnana, or knowledge that one is not this material body, but spirit soul, is not sufficient for liberation. One has to act in the status of the spirit soul. Otherwise, there is no escape from material bondage. Action in Krishna consciousness is not, however, action on the fruitive platform. Krishna consciousness is not activities performed all in full knowledge strengthens one's advancement in real knowledge. Without Krishna consciousness, mere renunciation of fruitive activities does not actually purify the heart of a conditioned soul. As long as the heart is not purified, one has to work on the fruitive platform. But action in Krishna consciousness automatically helps one escape the result of fruitive action, so that one need not descend to the material platform. Therefore, action in Krishna consciousness is always superior to renunciation, which always entails the risk of falling. Renunciation without Krishna consciousness is incomplete, as is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasmita Sindhu. Prapanachikataya Buddhaya Hari Sambandhari Vashutana Mumu Mumukshubhi Parijayago Varyagam Palago Tatayate. Renunciation by persons eager to achieve liberation of things which are related to the Supreme Personality Godhead, though they are material, is called incomplete renunciation. Renunciation is complete when it's in the knowledge that everything in existence belongs to the Lord, and that no one should claim proprietorship over anything. One should understand that factually nothing belongs to anyone. Then where is the question of renunciation? One who knows that everything is Krishna's property is always situated in renunciation. Since everything belongs to Krishna, everything should be employed in the service of Krishna. This perfect form of action in Krishna consciousness is far better than any amount of artificial renunciation by a sannyasi or Mayavadi school. So in Krishna consciousness, we're utilizing all these objects, in Krishna service, whether, if we have a cell phone, using that in his service, keeping contact with other devotees, looking up scriptures, especially nowadays with the cell phones that are out now. You actually go online and look at scripture, read the Srimad Bhagavatam right off your phone, the Bhagavad Gita, listen to sannyasis all over the world. I mean, all kinds of things that we can do with everyday objects in Krishna service. As long as we're using objects in Krishna service, it's not being used for sense gratification. See here, text 3. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, liberated from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage, is completely liberated, O mighty Arjuna. 4. One who is fully in Krishna consciousness is always renouncer because he feels neither hatred nor desire for the results of his actions. Such a renouncer dedicated to the transcendental loving service of the Lord is fully qualified in knowledge because he knows his constitutional position and his relationship with Krishna. He knows fully well that Krishna is the whole and is part and parcel of Krishna. Such knowledge is perfect because it is quantitatively and quantitatively correct. The concept of oneness with Krishna is incorrect because the past cannot be equal to the whole. Knowledge that one is one in the quality yet different in quantity is correct transcendental knowledge, leading one to become full in himself, having nothing to aspire to nor lament over. There's no duality in his mind because whatever he does for Krishna. Being thus freed from the platform of dualities, he is liberated, even in this material world. All the fruits of activities belong to Krishna. So what does that mean? Whether we are a success or a failure, it's all Krishna's grace. It's all God's grace. To advance in Krishna consciousness, you need the grace of Krishna. You need the grace of the Guru. You need the mercy. That's the only way. We can't do this on our own. Trying to do this on our own, we're not going to make that very, very much advancement at all. We have to have the mercy of Krishna. We have to have his grace. It's grace is not earned. It's you've got to beg for it. You got to, with the Maha Mantra, as I've stated before, continually begging Krishna, put me in your service. Oh, please put me in your service, over and over. Having a relationship with the deities. Gaurnitai here, is a beautiful thing. It's you got to go to Gaurnitai with your problems. You got to go to Gaurnitai when you have doubts. You got to develop that relationship. Gaurnitai will respond. You beg him enough, he reciprocates, especially if it's for spiritual advancement. Results of our works, we do not own them at all. It's all Krishna's, and it's only by his grace whether we're a success or failure. And if we fail, we can't be attached to that failure. Can't lament over it. If we're a success, we can't be attached to that success. It's all Krishna's grace. Text 4. Only the ignorant speak of karma yoga and devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. Purport. The aim of analytical study of the material world is to find the soul of existence. The soul of material world is Vishnu, or the supersoul. Devotional service to the Lord entails service to the supersoul. One process is to find the root of the tree, and the next to water the root. The real student of Sankhya philosophy finds the root of the material world, Vishnu, and then, in perfect knowledge, engages himself in the service of the Lord. Therefore, in essence, there is no difference between the two because the aim of both is Vishnu. Those who do not know the ultimate end say that the purpose of Sankhya and Karma Yoga are not the same, but one who is learned knows the unifying aim in these different processes. Any questions so far? Yes. The real student of Sankhya philosophy finds the root of the material world, Vishnu, and then in perfect knowledge engages himself in the service of the Lord. Therefore, in essence, there is no difference between the two because the aim of both is Vishnu. Those who do not know the ultimate end say that the purposes of Sankhya and Karma Yoga are not the same, but one who is Lord knows the unifying aim in these different positions and different processes. Go on to text 5. One who knows the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works and devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are. Report. The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, there is no difference between the conclusions reached by the two processes. By Sankhya philosophy, by the Sankhya philosophical research, one comes to the conclusion that a living entity is not a part and parcel of the material world, but of the supreme spirit whole. Consequently, the spirit soul has nothing to do with the material world. His actions must be in some relation with the supreme. When he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is actually in his constitutional position. In the first process of Sankhya, one has to become detached from matter, and in this devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to the work of Krishna. Factually, both processes are the same. Although superficially, one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve attachment. However, detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see these things as they are. Both processes are the same, although superficially one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve attachment. However, detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One can see these things as they are. So much here in Krishna consciousness, we're utilizing these material things in Krishna service. We're becoming attached to Krishna, from offering a flower to Krishna and smelling the flower. That the flower is transcendental now. We're smelling, we're using our senses on a different level. We're attaching ourselves to Krishna, from smelling the flower, hearing the kirtan, eating the prasad, all kinds of attachments, for Krishna. We're becoming detached from the material things that are binding us to this world and attaching ourselves to the transcendental things that have been offered to Krishna and Krishna service. Text 6. Unless one is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, mere renunciation of activities cannot make one happy. The sages, purified by works of devotion, achieve the supreme without delay. There are two classes of sannyas, or persons in the renounced order of life. Mayavadi, the sannyasis, are engaged in the study of Sankhya philosophy, whereas the Vaishnava sannyas are engaged in the study of Bhagavatam philosophy, which affords a proper commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Mayavadi sannyas also study the Vedanta Sutras, but use their own commentary called Sarika Bhashya, written by Sankaracharya. The students of the Bhagavata school are engaged in devotional service, devotional service of the Lord. According to Pancharatriki regulations, and therefore the Vaishnava sannyasis have multiple engagements in the transcendental service of the Lord. The Vaishnava sannyasis have nothing to do with material activities, yet they perform various activities in their devotional service to the Lord. But the Mayavadi sannyasis engaged in the studies of Sankhya and Vedanta and speculation cannot relish a transcendental service of the Lord, because their studies become very tedious. They sometimes become tired of Brahma speculation, and thus they take shelter of the Bhagavatam without proper understanding. Consequently, the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam becomes troublesome. Dry speculations and impersonal interpretations by artificial means are all useless for the Mayavadi sannyasis. The Vaishnava sannyasis who are engaged in devotional service are happy in the discharge of their transcendental duties, and they have the guarantee of ultimate entrance into the kingdom of God. The Mayavadi sannyasis fall down from the path of self-realization and again enter into material activities of the philanthropic and altruistic nature, which are nothing but material engagements. Therefore, the conclusion is that those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness are better situated than the sannyasis engaged in simple Brahman speculation, although they too come to Krishna consciousness after many births. In other words, don't speculate. Very simple. Don't speculate. That's sometimes hard to do because our minds are continually working, trying to figure things out. But when in doubt, you gotta ask a spiritual master. You gotta ask a person of authority. When there are doubts, it's not good to try to make things up in your head. Trying to speculate. We don't speculate. We go to the source. We try to find the knowledge. Can't find the knowledge. We find a person of authority. A spiritual master, a guru. Ask the guru. Guru doesn't speculate. Vaishnavas don't speculate. Text 7. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches, or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is a servant to all, he is very dear to everyone. Because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. Because his mind is controlled, his senses are controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of his being deviated from Krishna, nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. He does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as has already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons in the battlefield would continue to live individually, as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who is personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Any questions before we wrap up? You know, famous line of Jesus was, one cannot serve two masters. One cannot, serve serve one master and hate the other. And it's pretty much Krishna consciousness. We're everything is employed in Krishna service and God's service. We cannot have two masters in this. We cannot serve our own bodily senses, for our own sense gratification and try to serve Krishna at the same time. You have to put everything towards Krishna. Put all of our activities towards Krishna. Everything should be revolved around Krishna. Nothing should be outside of that. No questions. Oh, that's from the Bible. Let me see if I can find that real quick. The backstory, well, that was basically Jesus preaching, saying that God comes first. Yeah, God comes first. One cannot serve two masters. One cannot serve both money and God at the same time. Money. He was preaching about riches. You can't be in love with your riches and say you love God at the same time. That's basically what he was saying. Yeah. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.